It started with a scream, high, sharp, and dripping with disbelief. The kind of sound you just can't make up, coming not from me or my family, but from a lady floating on a pink flamingo, mimosa in hand, right before one of my Angus cows nudged her into the murky water of my cattle pond. Picture this, an HOA queen, heels and all, flapping around in cow drool and pond scum, her fancy sundress stuck to her knees, desperately holding her glass aloft while my herd wandered in for a surprise dip. She had no clue I'd opened that pasture gate on purpose. And honestly, watching that scene unfold was the kind of payoff you wait a lifetime for. See, it all started 2 days before that glorious chaos, when I noticed a row of shiny luxury SUVs lining up behind my barn, like some kind of impromptu car show on gravel. I thought maybe someone got lost, a delivery driver maybe, or city folks exploring too far. But this wasn't a FedEx detour. It was a full-blown invasion. At least 14 cars, upbeat music bouncing off the trees, and the unmistakable clatter of folding chairs. I followed the noise and nearly lost my boots when I saw what they'd done. My cattle pond had been turned into a budget version of a resort. Giant floaties drifting, a tiki bar set up right on my dock, and a battalion of ladies in sun hats fanning themselves like they were waiting for the derby. In front and center was Karen. Oversized sunglasses, clipboard, and the voice of a foghorn, presiding over the whole scene like a queen who'd annexed my land for the afternoon. Never mind the fact that her HOA didn't even extend to my property. She carried herself like she owned every blade of grass. Karen strolled over, smiled that icy, teeth-clenched smile folks save for toddlers with scissors, and handed me a laminated brunch schedule. Live harpist, yoga on my hayfield, paddleboat photos, the works. Just a few hours, she said, as if it was some gracious favor for me. She even hinted I should feel honored. After all, not everyone gets to host such an elegant affair. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice, just nodded and excused myself, because while Karen thought my silence meant surrender, what it really meant was I had a plan. And part one involved a quick call to my old friend Tessa, who's been organizing weddings since before Pinterest was a thing. She nearly split her sides laughing, then said, "Let them dig their own grave. Just document everything." So for the next day and a half, I watched Karen's posse hustle, porta potties, banners, fairy lights strung on my trees, and even a ribbon barrier, as if that could keep my cows at bay. The whole thing looked like a magazine shoot staged by people who'd never met actual livestock. By Sunday morning, the property smelled like hairspray and overpriced perfume. My cows hate both. Right on schedule, Karen kicked off the brunch with a speech about community spirit. I, meanwhile, eased open the pasture gate with the slow patience of a man who knows exactly what comes next. My herd saw the opening, sniffed out the bagels and fruit platters, and ambled downhill like the fluffy stampede they are. The first cow nudged an inflatable peacock out of the way, and soon the whole crew was wading in, mooing contentedly while guests shrieked, dropped plates, and scrambled for dry land. Karen went ballistic, shrieking at me to control my animals, threatening lawsuits, and then, most delicious of all, calling 911 to report a cow attack. The deputy who showed up looked like he was about to laugh himself sick. When Karen insisted the HOA had verbal jurisdiction over my farm, he just asked if she had any paperwork. She produced her clipboard, soaked, thanks to my cows, and the deputy, trying not to grin, turned to me. "You want to press trespassing charges?" I declined. Sometimes you just have to let nature do the talking. When the brunch crowd scattered, I watched Karen's niece cry over her ruined sash while a cow gnawed the hem. The harpist vanished, the yoga instructor was trapped behind the buffet, and my cows looked happier than ever. I just leaned on my fence, coffee in hand, and smiled, because sometimes the best revenge is just letting things run their course. But that wasn't the end. Karen, the queen of comebacks, didn't retreat. She retaliated. 3 days after her public humiliation, I spotted a drone zipping over my pasture. I waved a shovel at it, and it zipped away, but that was just the start. Soon, Karen was flooding the HOA inbox with complaints. My cows were causing noise pollution, shaking houses with their hooves, emitting dangerous methane clouds. She even had drone footage of a bull relieving himself with a caption that read, "Environmental biohazard in progress." A letter from a nuisance abatement officer arrived, citing anonymous complaints. I was ready, brought out my cousin Dallas, who works for the USDA, handed over perfect records, water tests, you name it. The inspector took one look, muttered something about wasting his morning, and left. Still, Karen was relentless. She went door to door, collecting signatures for a cow-free zone, passing out flyers with doctored images of rampaging cattle. Then, the twist. I decided if she wanted a public narrative, I'd give her one. Called up my buddy Ethan at the local news. Next thing you know, we're shooting a feel-good segment. Cows versus Karens. The piece went viral. Everyone roasted the HOA, kids hugged my cows, and a local bakery even offered to sponsor a cow appreciation day. It turned into a whole event. Bounce houses, music, families coming together. Even the mayor showed up and snapped a selfie with a calf. Karen's next move? A certified legal letter claiming my community event disturbed the peace. Dallas forwarded it to the state board. 2 days later, Karen got her own letter, threatening fines if she kept harassing an active farm. That kept her quiet for a while. But one morning, a for sale sign appeared on the strip of land next to my pond. No acreage listed, just scenic water views. Turns out, Karen had tried to buy the lot to build a pavilion overlooking my pond. I called the owner, an old friend, and sealed the deal before she could blink. Built a sign that read, "Cows may approach without warning." She countered with a fairy-light fence and garden plans. I invited a local paintball club to practice behind it every weekend. The sound alone drove her nuts. She filmed my cows, edited the clips to look like attacks, but nobody on the HOA board bought it anymore. They'd had enough. The neighborhood kids kept coming by, families brought cookies, and I decided to turn my barn wall into a mural, smiling cows, big letters. Welcome to Mulandia. Karen tried classical music to soothe the environment. The cows ate her ivy and knocked her speaker into the mud. The sheriff laughed when she called, said she was lucky her fence was still standing. The drama built up to the ultimate showdown. Karen tried to reclassify my pond as a community water feature, dragging me to a zoning hearing with doctored photos and wild claims. I showed up with deeds, maps, testimony, and a letter from the USDA, my pond, my cows, my rules. The board shut her down, hard. A few weeks later, I hosted one last party, HOAvist, with the whole community, food trucks, music, even a photo booth with the infamous flamingo float. Karen never showed, but plenty of HOA folks did. Many apologized, some thanked me for making their kids love cows. And as summer slipped by, Karen finally moved. Her house listed as Pond View. Carefully cropped to hide the fence, the paintball range, and the mural. Last I heard, she moved to a gated community where the only livestock are stone lions at the entrance. So here's the thing, folks. You can build fences, file complaints, even try to rewrite the rules, but you can't force yourself into a place that doesn't belong to you. Not on land that remembers every boot and hoof that's touched it. When all's said and done, the cows keep grazing, the pond keeps shining in the moonlight, and the flamingo float still drifts in lazy circles, a little faded, but still here, just like me. What about you? Where do you stand on the line between private rights and community control? Have you ever faced down a Karen in your own life? Share your story below. I can't wait to hear who you'd invite to your next HOAvist. If you enjoyed this tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know. Is chaos always the best answer, or is there another way to keep the peace?